I think it's important to have something that is more historically and historically appropriate than the existing site plan and design, which is very general. It's very it gets away from the iconic nature of the village that I think so many of us do enjoy. And so I would encourage the planning board to really look into that when determining how any final site should appear. And lastly, to talk about a reduction in quantity for any future site plan. The applicant is allowed 14 units. While I agree that additional commercial units are not really appropriate here, given the open commercial units we have in the village, I don't think adding an additional 14 in its place is an optimal solution for that. Part of that has to do with the flooding. I'm very much for affordable housing. We want to make sure that we can find that in the village, but traffic is a major concern here. With that many units, ideally it's a light. We already have a light there. It's just not a recipe for. It's not a recipe for a quality of living for people who live in the village, as well as any residents who would move into that complex in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next I have Lindsay Dixon.
My name is Lindsay Dixon. I've been coming to board meetings in South Lumen Grove and here, and this is very similar. I heard this. I don't know if anybody picked up on this gentleman's threat that if we don't do the 14 and 14, they'll proceed with the commercial. But I did pick up on that. Are there going to be Section 8 housing? If it is Section 8 housing, does this contractor or this LLC have the people that they already picked out? Because KJ, we're not allowed to talk about it, but has their own waiting list for Section 8 housing, and that's how they're able to just come into a town and take over a unit like this. Also, this unit, I guarantee you, it won't be, once you approve it for 2 units, 2 bedrooms, the second floor will become 1 unit. It'll be 14 units, but there'll be 4 bedrooms, and that's what will happen. Guaranteed they will change it. Everything about this, so I've heard this all. They wouldn't even tell you what they're building. Now they're telling, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're not sure of this, we got to check some trees still, we haven't done this. Your job is to just vote no. Just vote no. That's my recommendation. Everything they claimed, oh, we were going to do that with the buses, but we didn't get to that. We were going to do this, but we didn't get to that. You got a whole law team here, and they all seem to forget to do all the things you ask them. You vote no on this. I didn't even know about the precedent, but that's your out. So you can't do the borderline, you can't combine 2 properties, that's your out. Vote no. Thank you.
Again, I just remind the public, please no clapping because it just takes time. Rob, Giuseppe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry everybody else. We're trying to respect everybody's time. Rob, Giuseppe.
Rob Gillespie.
Sorry.
Is this going to be low-income housing? Somebody?
They're not answering.
Guys, 1 comment at a time, guys. Thank you.
Laura Dowling.
That's me. It took me 50 minutes out of my day today. 25 minutes leaving the village, 25 minutes coming back. Whoever's driving the pickup truck for Washingtonville PD, 4 to 12, you can witness, you were in traffic with me. 50 minutes out of my day. The taxes I pay, not fair to us. At all. I moved up here from the South Bronx back in 2005. For what? The historic charm in this village. We're all watching it leave. Because if I'm not mistaken, is that unit Was that right there, a historic site? Anyone?
It's over 100 years old.
Not a historic building?
It's not protected.
What year was it built?
Doesn't matter.
Why?
Because historic is a designation, Washingtonville does not have a historic designation, and it was never applied to be put on New York State historic landmarks.
Well, there's the problem. Yep.
That's a problem.
Let's apply.
Or is it me?
The original
building to the... And isn't that a flood zone? Last I checked, it was underwater
Yeah.
back in Irene, because I was up here for that.
Yep.
A lot of water, they're gonna put
A lot of water.
up there. And again, equal opportunity. If I sell my house, can I rent that unit? Those are my concerns.
Thank you for your comment. Next I have Sharam Sadati, Yorkshire Terrace. S-H-A-R-M, Charm, okay. Bonnie Rum,
Yes.
I have this written, so give me a second, I want to save time. The lot line, once you set a precedent, that's for sure, you're setting the precedent. And the traffic, you've heard a lot about. About the stormwater. The design for the project currently consists of only a holding tank under the parking lot from which the stormwater will be discharged to the Moodna. Now, you heard that from Susan. This type of system will not provide any treatment for the stormwater, such as removal of oil and grease. A stormwater detention pond would provide filtration of the stormwater prior to discharge. Also, there needs to be an operation and maintenance plan for the stormwater system, and a bond of funds should be required to cover the cost of inspections by the village and for them to perform maintenance. For example, the removal of the accumulated solids in the tank. If the owner and the development fails to do so, and we all know sometimes owners, when they sell out there or rent out, they're somewhere else. The other thing is I heard it called 100-year floodplain, and we've all seen that the 100-year floods happen every other year almost. So that's a nonsense term, and it really needs to be adjusted with climate change and all the rest of it. And we lived through it. And we saw the flooding in that area. And frankly, if this project goes through, if it does, and we simply want to publicize to anybody who would be renting in there, do you really want to put all your belongings in a place that can be flooded out, because that's our experience? I don't think that would be a good cash flow for the owners. Thank you.
thank you for your comments. Next I have M. Farley, Cartwheel. This is difficult to, if your name
Maybe
starts
it's
with an
me?
M. Hmm?
Is Sadaya? Yes.
What's your name? I'm sorry.
Mariam Sadaya. Yeah, I'm a healthcare worker and I have to be on time when I go to my work. And as is, I have to leave half an hour earlier, 45 minutes earlier, to be at work. There have been times that there was hurricane and I had stuck at work for 3 days. I was exhausted. And because of the flood, I was just a few feet from Main Street, but I could not get to my house. I was sitting in my car and crying. I was exhausted. I just don't know how this is going to help with the flood.
Thank you. Smith? I'm gonna
Stephanie,
start.
there's another page on the.
James Castilla.
Excuse me, Castellano. I thought you were just trying to get a head count for how many people we have.
Oh, okay. No problem. Sheila McGrody.
Yeah. Hello. Great comments from everybody. Traffic, increased congestion is inevitable. It's clear. I believe that if this project is to go through with this number of units, or even a decreased number, that the applicant needs to be required to fund those changes, whether it's a third lane or increasing to 2 lanes of traffic. It should not be allowed to proceed, and the traffic problems multiply, and 2-3 years down the road, the village and the town and the county and the state and all of us are paying for those traffic improvements. That needs to be taken care of now. In terms of the lot line change, I agree. We're talking about setting precedent. I really don't think that's a good idea. In terms of, I'm actually a professional engineer, and having reviewed the plans, it appears to me that the site that was considered in terms of how many units would be allowed does include floodplain and wetlands. And I think that should be looked at more carefully. I think that could give kind of a false sense of how large the site is and what really is feasible there. I'm also concerned about the Mudna and the stormwater and the lack of treatment there. And in terms of the iconic building and all, I think really what would be more appropriate would be some sort of adaptive reuse of that historic building, along with some small amount of affordable housing. I do think there is a need for that, but I do not think that's the right place for 28 units. I think some sort of compromise, keep the building, find reuse for it, add some units. And lastly, in terms of variances, my understanding is that one reason not to grant variance is if it's self-imposed. And it appears to me that what the applicant is trying to do really is a self-imposed problem. I would urge you to vote for a positive declaration on this. There are clearly potential significant impacts environmentally, in terms of community character, and traffic safety. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I have Tom DeVinco.
Thank you. Just, I guess, for the attorneys, when we're talking about the OR zone, was that the only zone that you worked on to come up with this development? Or was there another zone that was looped into the OR zone?
We didn't seek a change in zone.
I'm sorry?
We did not seek a change in zone.
Not changing the zone, but did you just use the OR zone to come up with this concept? And in that code, it describes that you can build this? Or was it through a combination of different zones?
I'm not aware. We'll address that with you.
Yeah, if you could find out, I'd appreciate that, thank you. Just a comment too on traffic. You know, as things change, right, you start with office and then office turns into a little bit more commercial, and you need to be careful because it's not commercial property, it's office property. So it's a dentist, it's a psychologist, it's not a pizza, it's not a dry cleaners, it's not commercial. So you need to look at that or correct it, or if it was thought to put some commercial in there, what you're going to be looking at. My point is that there are some businesses that have come in that are really more commercial, and now we have tractor trailers stopping on 94 dropping off deliveries. And now some of those commercial properties are also putting large sea containers on their property for storage. So that needs to stop. Not so much your problem, but it's the village problem, so that the OR zone doesn't turn into a 100% commercial. For the planning board, how many members are on the board currently?
There are 5.
There are 5, okay.
There's 1 member absent this evening.
Okay. And to pass this, do they need a super vote of 5-0?
No, I don't, no. We didn't receive county comments yet, which might trigger supermajority, but no, not right now.
Okay. Same concerns about the rain runoff, the flood zone. It encroaches, it's a 100-year floodplain. And that also, just backing it up, just to say it so it's on record for the traffic issues that are on 94. We all know in the morning, the last car is somewhere near the firehouse that's still waiting to get to the school. And then North Street now is probably up to the cemetery in most cases, so the traffic is horrendous. Also not in favor of that lot line change for the obvious reasons already discussed. have there been any discussions, rather with your comment on the planning board as far as parking is concerned, that there's only 2 spots for the family, so we come over with friends and family and barbecues and whatever else, where's everybody gonna go? So has there been any discussion to take this project from 2 buildings to 1 building?
We've had about, I believe, 2 years of discussion, so we've gone through a lot of different reiterations and versions of the project, correct?
Okay, well, if it had to happen, I would probably recommend 1, just because you're squeezing 2 buildings into a space that really just doesn't fit. Because you gotta go to zoning, you don't have the parking, the resources and additional traffic should be taken into consideration. I got another 3?
Nope. Actually, I gave you a little more for the start.
All right, so can I just say one thing?
All right, thank you for your comments. Diane Arroyo, please.
Actually, I'm gonna pass because he just answered all my questions, but if you wanna continue and use my
You're
minutes.
That's
Oh,
not
you'll
good.
pass the
Thank
5 minutes on to the representative in New Jersey?
Answer
Outstanding, only a couple.
my question.
you. Okay, next person is Donna Caruso.
I think she passed her 3
I'm
minutes
sorry,
to me.
Mr. DeVinco, that's not permitted.
Why?
Because
Come
we
on.
would be here all night with one person then. It's 3 minutes per person.
That's wrong,
That
that
is
is dead wrong.
Guys, listen.
Donna
All right,
Caruso.
Right here, right, yeah, let somebody else read it. Okay. Many of us in this room right now were gathered back in 1998 for something similar but not so similar. Tom was mayor at the time. We had some significant issues. My question, not question, but my concerns are like everybody else's. Tom touched on most of what I had wanted to say. I need more clarity about that zone. I want to know exactly what is permissible to be built in an OR zone. It's office residential, what does that mean? There has to be more language. Somebody can't just come in and build a 10-story building there, I would hope. As we have taken on an issue back in '98, there were things that were addressed because not everything was done the way it should have been done. And it took a lot of uncovering to realize what can happen if things are not nipped. And that was going in a direction that would have destroyed this town. Impact studies had to be done, school, water, traffic. What are we doing? Where's the clarification on what can be built in an OR zone? Does the planning board have? Zoning board have? But does anyone here, can anyone here speak to that?
I think you're speaking, we're just taking notes and we're not allowed to answer, but pretty much everything that you just brought up has been answered in other meetings.
I would just advise you to take a look at the zoning code. It lists the permitted uses in there.
I have.
I'm sorry, you have 58 seconds left.
Oh my God. Okay. We'd like to recommend a comprehensive plan study and rezoning to protect our quality of life. What is the elevation of the first floor?
What's the elevation of the first floor?
It's in the plans, and I haven't the slightest idea of the exact numbers.
Okay. So will the engineer be here at the next meeting?
Yes. As long as, I mean, he's just not here because he tested positive. That's the plan. Thank you for your comments. Next on the list, I have Joan Timoldi.
Hi.
I'm basically reiterating a lot of the comments other people said because I want them for the record that it's more than one or two people that are concerned. I'm very concerned about the flooding, the plans. I don't think they're appropriate to protect our Muna and our flood zone. I am very concerned about not just the traffic on Main Street, but I live in Brookshire. When it snows, you have to be able to move your car. There's absolutely no place for these people to move. There's no extra space. They can't go on 94. What is the plan for that? How are you going to resolve for fixing and allowing people to park, move their cars? There's no room for guests. There's no room for anything to be done. And I think most important, which was said a few times, setting legal precedents of allowing the change in the lines between properties. That sets a huge legal precedent. You will never be able to change it. Everybody else after that can come back and point to that decision and say, you made the decision there, you made the decision for me now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next I have Teresa Carlan, East Main Street.
Okay. Therese Cavalieri, 75 East Main Street. So I'm only a few plots from this proposed development. Having been there for almost 40 years, I can tell you that flooding is an issue. It's a big issue, a huge issue. Furthermore, without a concern for any historical preservation for the facades that line what makes our village quaint, desirable, and American, again, you set precedent to take it all away. That's the reason why we're here. You're telling me, by allowing this to happen, I have 1¼ acres there. You're telling me, if you let this go, I can knock it all down, bulldoze it, and build more projects. All you have to do is drive down Water Street in Newburgh and take a look to your left to see what projects did and what urban renewal did in Newburgh. And what it did all over the country, all you have to Google. This is not a grand scale. It's not Albany and what it did in Albany, or the Bronx, or Brooklyn, but it's the footstep. It's knocking on the door. You allow this precedent, you allow me and anybody else that sells on Main Street to do the same exact thing. And then we're not a village anymore. We're just a roadway to travel through. Thanks.
I'm also concerned with the traffic. Our sewer plant just got enlarged. I don't know how much more it can hold, with this new one. And these guys come in here, you said 2 years you've been at this plant, and they come here unprepared to meet 60 people, 75 people, whatever's here. I mean, it shouldn't happen this way.
Just recycle.
And also with the village, nobody, I've been here 32 years. I love the way it looks. I wanted to stay that way for as long as we can keep it. And if you move the lines, property lines, you're just opening up a can of worms. It's just going to explode. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Jean Golly.
Yes, hi. I'm amazed at the turnout here. Clearly, there's a passion to question and push back on this project. There's many of us here who have driven through Washingtonville and survived some of the horrible hurricanes and watched that floodplain and see the Muna come up over Main Street. And the first time I did it, I cried. I'd never seen anything like that. And I don't think anyone in this room can discard what's going on with that floodplain. And it will set a precedent. And then what happens? And I have one word for you all. FEMA. There are people here who lost their homes, right? And if memory serves correct, and these days it doesn't normally do that, but didn't FEMA say if you build on the floodplain, that's it. We're not bailing you out. And I'm sure somewhere in the village records, that fact remains. And that's beyond this, where it's gonna be built and the potential of what can happen on the floodplain, there shouldn't be any construction going on down there. There should be none, because it will impact everybody, when the weather gets bad. And we know that things are changing as far as rainfall goes. I don't know, if you don't call it climate change or whatever the hell you want to call it. We're getting more rain, and that movement is persnickety, and it floods. And I don't want to have to drive through there again, crying, and people losing their homes, and FEMA saying, hey, bye-bye, we told you, we're done with you. So, I hope this helps. Thank you.
Comments, Miller?
Well, we covered historical buildings and traffic. Anyway, my traffic issue is the pre-traffic issue. Where is this construction equipment gonna go? I mean, it's gotta be someplace, and you knock down these buildings. Where's it gonna be on 94? You just leave it there, it's all gonna be bunched up. It's gonna have to come out of there eventually, and then you're gonna have more traffic. I mean, they're not gonna wait until 12 o'clock to start after school starts. And they're not gonna stop again at 2:30, waiting for all the buses to go by. So this is like the pre-traffic traffic. That's it.
Thank you. I have Barbara Horn.
Thank you. I'm curious about what the Plan B would be. Okay, so when this gets voted down. Plan B is we'll do commercial or businesses in the bottom floor. Okay, that's fine. I'm all for inclusivity. I love that our community is changing and that we have new blood to enjoy and love our community. I want to see new restaurants, something different to bite into. But where does it fit on the property? When the lot line doesn't move. That property is still bought. What is the next step for the company, the LLC? What are they going to do with it if and when? This plan doesn't fly. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next I have Ariana Tadayan.
Hi, sorry about public speaking. So, with the entrance of the apartments being so close to the already existing intersection going towards Northern Plaza, I feel like this creates a really dangerous flow of traffic where there's people coming in all three directions as well as people trying to turn in right before the traffic light. I feel like it's kind of like a disaster waiting to happen. And especially when people are getting into accidents right in that Main Street area, like that whole road is going to be shut down. Also, the building is, I feel like, I know it's not technically historic, but it's pretty historic, and it's iconic to the village. If it can't be purchased by a resident, then if we had the opportunity to do something else with it, I feel like it would be really great if it could be turned into something like a community center or an arts center, something like what Montgomery has. I feel like it would really add to the community and enrich the culture of Washingtonville. Also, I feel like because of all the changes that will be happening in that area, I feel like we will be forced to pay more taxes. I'm not a tax expert, but I feel like when maintenance of the general area goes up because of more traffic, more litter, more garbage, we're going to have to, like as a town, bear the burden of paying more to keep that up. And I also believe that as somebody who lives on Cartwheel Court in these already existing condos, because there are no extra spaces for parking, the closest place for them to park is in our parking spots. So we're going to lose our parking spots to people that don't live there. And my closing comment is, I was born in this town. I would like to die in this town. I would like to live here for the rest of my life. Yeah, not yet. But with the threat of this village being turned into something that is the complete opposite of what it has always been, I don't know if one day there will be a place for someone like me or anyone else that is here today.
Thank you. Thomas? Baisley?
Yes.
Bosley?
Hello, my name is Thomas Beasley, and I am 48 East Main Street. I have a couple of critical issues concerning, and the reason I'm speaking loud is because I can't hear a thing back here from anybody. But what I'd like to ask is, have we got an architect or an engineer of record in here today to answer the question?
No.
Do we, yes or no?
No questions, just
Okay,
comments.
that's first thing we need to look at that first and get somebody here that can answer the question. 2, is that building elevated because it's a floodplain, or is it on flat ground? I'm asking the questions. I'm not going to look at a drawing. I'm asking the questions. Can anybody answer that?
Plus, tonight, as they said, is just for comments, not for, tonight is just for comments, not for questions.
We're going beyond comments, young man. Believe me, in this village, believe me. This development, to me, on a visual, even on that board there, is completely cluster building. It's going to be misused. That's what it's designed for. I work in the building industry. I know exactly what I see above there in detail. A lot of people don't understand what's on that building. I do. I need an architect and an engineer here. Second issue, the lack of information tonight is actually embarrassing. If a developer wanted to develop, he should have people here to answer the public.
That's right.
Remember, we are the taxpayers.
That's right.
So I'm a bit upset about that. You're not wasting a lot of time tonight pertaining to this issue. We need architects, we need engineers, we need to ask simple questions, and we want answers. I'm going to go one more step. Somebody mentioned about, I live in Blooming Grove, but I have property in the village. Have I the right to speak at this meeting? Because I don't vote in the village? That's another question I have. I pay taxes in the village.
Then you can.
I want that kind of law changed as well. I'm getting a bit offended by that as well.
And I'll also say,
Yes, I want to voice my opinion. And remember, we're feeling strong about this. This is half of what you see here. We can fill that car park outside here. I know development when it's wrong. Everybody knows when something is wrong. It's instinct. So please, work with us on this.
thank you, sir, and I would just say quickly back to that is, I said this project has been in front of us for about, I think, approximately 2 years now, and there has been plenty of opportunities for the public to come down, because all of our meetings are public, they're also filmed also, so if any previous meetings, you can watch them online. You could have come down and asked questions. I said this is just a public comment, as per the review we have to do from the county and the state.
That's a question. I'm looking for an engineer and an architect, and I can't get one.
Right.
Well, let's straighten that out. We are here for public comment. When we get your comments, we're going to answer them. But if we tried to answer them tonight, it would be bedlam. So we're taking your comments seriously. We're listening. And we will have answers for you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Beasley, you have another 45 seconds. I was gonna give you another minute because people were speaking with you. Do you want to finish?
I'm offended the fact that I don't get paid.